Do you think, honest question here, and, don't worry if you seem to peeve off Arsenal fans, do you think it's a big upgrade, Havertz and Rice, for Xhaka and Partey?
No, I think it's I think overall, if you weigh the entire change up, I think they've lost quality. I don't think it's as good. Like if you think about the net of this, I think the mean average of Partey and Xhaka is better than the mean average of Rice and Havertz.
Yeah, it is part of that as well, and it's difficult to quantify this because how do you quantify leadership, right? But everyone talks about Partey and Xhaka being the leaders in the dressing room. And they're the two experienced players in terms of age. You don't necessarily... You get that with Declan Rice, 100%. I don't know if you get that with Kai Havertz.
No, Kai Havertz isn't a leader. No.
Yeah.
He's most certainly not a leader. I think when we evaluate Arsenal's midfield, I think if you think about the player that Thomas Partey is, if you think about the season that he had overall, I think people are incredibly unkind about how well he played across the whole season. He went to pot when it most mattered. In terms of Arsenal's capitulation, I think it was personified by Thomas Partey's performances. He really didn't turn up when it most mattered. But that doesn't make him a bad player. That doesn't mean that he didn't have a brilliant season. There was a time earlier in the season when he was directly comparable to Rice or Casemiro.
This is obviously, we know he won the Europa Conference League, but if Rice didn't win the Europa Conference League for West Ham, massive, by the way, absolutely massive, how well would you have said he did last season?
Declan Rice?
Yeah.
I think he had a very good season.
Okay.
I think he had a very good season, but you can't take trophies out of it. When you ask me to factor in Declan Rice's season and kind of try and evaluate and quantify his overall contribution to West Ham, it's impossible for me to do that and not weigh in the fact that they won their first piece of silverware since 1980.
Yeah.
Of course I can't do that.
No,
And it's unfair to do that.
I guess what I'm asking for when we're trying to compare the four that I'm talking about is, did Rice have a better season than Partey?
Yes, he did have a better season than Partey. Overall, he had a better season than Partey. But Granit Xhaka certainly had a better season than Kai Havertz. Yeah,
I think Mikel Arteta's taken a risk here, a big one. And it's an expensive risk. It's a risk that's cost them 170 million quid. You're getting rid of Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey. You speak to a lot of Arsenal fans, and yes, the midfield, let them down at times, but you speak to them, they all tell me, and they all say, it was Saliba being out and Holding coming in. Was the big problem. That was the big problem. Not necessarily the midfield. And he's looked like he's changing, wholesale changes in the midfield. Yeah,
not all of them are his choice. And look, the way that Granit Xhaka played last year, overall, I haven't been a particularly huge fan of Granit Xhaka. Overall, I don't think he's been a particularly good player for Arsenal. But he had a brilliant season last year. And he turned into a box-to-box, goal-scoring midfielder. And Mikel Arteta deserves some credit for that. Mikel Arteta helped evolve the performances of Granit Xhaka into being a complete midfielder, a complete box-to-box midfielder. So if he can work similar magic on Kai Havertz,
then well,
I would say that the raw materials of Havertz are better than the raw materials of Granit Xhaka.
The raw materials as a midfielder?
Yes.
Or as a footballer? There's a difference.
They're going to play the game in a slightly different way. They're going to play the midfield role in a slightly different way. Granit Xhaka is far more combative than Kai Havertz will be, but Kai Havertz is far more skillful than Granit Xhaka will be. But if Mikel Arteta can elevate the performances of Kai Havertz in the way that he elevated the performances of Granit Xhaka, then they've got a really good player there. The problem is, if he can't and they end up with Chelsea's version of Kai Havertz, they've got a dud.
Yeah, we'll see.